Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. This is Gianni DePucci, your host. It's Friday again, so it means it's time to review what went on geocosmically and what went on in the market. So let's start off with the Dow Jones. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. We just went through the midpoint of Mercury retrograde this past week, and so this very choppy price action. We started off on Monday making a new cycle high. We dropped and made a new low for the correction, actually taking out the low in the Dow from last week. But now here on Friday, we saw the Dow gap up and is trading near the highs of the day, erasing most of the losses on the week. So this is typical Mercury retrograde price action, and it's not uncommon, according to our studies, to see reversals near the midpoint of Mercury retrograde. So we did have some interesting price action in the NASDAQ as well, which is set to close at a new multi-month high. But the NASDAQ did not take out its low from the previous week. So this is a good sign right now. And as we look forward into the week ahead, we have Venus set to ingress into the sign of Cancer, and we have the Sun set to form a conjunction with Uranus. So Sun conjunct Uranus, that can mean breakouts and breaks of resistance technical zones or support technical zones. And Uranus also rules technology, and especially the NASDAQ. So this is something we need to keep an eye on, but we do need to maintain a healthy level of skepticism in this Mercury retrograde environment, because Mercury is a trickster. We could see an initial move up, and by the time Mercury goes direct on May 14th, it could erase all and then some by then. So we need to keep an eye on that. Next week, we also have a trine aspect between Venus and Saturn on the 13th of May. I want to take a look at the US dollar here as well, taking a look at UUP, the ETF here. We're hanging out near the lows of this recent move, but this past week, we had Fed Chair Powell raise interest rates in alignment with expectations, 25 basis point rate hike. This was to be expected. So markets didn't really act that crazy in response, but he said that this could be the last hike of the cycle, and markets were looking for a rate hike, or a rate cut, I should say, by sometime this year. But then on Friday, we had a stronger than expected jobs number and unemployment levels at their lowest point in decades. So that's not exactly the type of economic data the Fed is looking for. So I think we need to take what Fed Chair Powell said with a grain of salt, especially under Mercury retrograde. We're susceptible to miscommunication. Now, next week, we're going to have an important inflation reading, CPI report. So if that comes in hotter than expected, I don't think the whole idea of a Fed rate cut is going to be very likely later this year. But we do know the summer that Venus is going to be retrograde in Leo, no less, and that Venus retrograde can coincide with pivots in monetary policy from the central bank. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. All right, let's take a look at gold now, because gold rallied to a new multi-month high. It was set to close out at its highest weekly level in history, but the sell-off here on Friday is some cause for concern, because we need to be skeptical of any breakouts unfolding under Mercury retrograde, and it looked like gold was breaking out earlier this week. So some caution is warranted. Earlier this year, we liked the idea of gold being bullish because of Jupiter's transit through the sign of Aries, and the sun is exalted in Aries, and the sun rules gold. But now that we only have a few days left in Jupiter's transit through Aries, it's set to ingress into Taurus on the 16th of May. Time could be running out on this rally, so that's something to keep a close eye on. Now, let's take a look at crude oil, because very big developments on this front. Now, I'm looking at USO, the ETF that we cover in the MMA monthly ETF report, but it did not make a new low. It did not take out that low in March compared to that March low. But we did see that unfold in the spot price of crude oil. So this could be a very significant low. And since Saturn is in the sign of Pisces, it's not uncommon to see intermediate term lows form in the sectors ruled by the sign that Saturn transits. So the crude oil, if it continues its rally, reinforces the notion that intermediate term low is complete. Initially, we like the idea of the March low being the intermediate one. But it looks like we had to wait a couple more weeks. So we need to keep an eye on that, especially as it ties into the inflation narrative, because if crude oil starts to rally again, I don't think we're going to see a Fed rate cut anytime in the near future. But we know that Venus retrograde can, change all of that this summer. Let's take a look at interest rates. 10-year interest rate still hanging out here. We were down to start the week, and then we finished up on the week. Well, up on Friday, still down on the week. But again, this ties into the jobs number being stronger than expected. That's not the data that the Fed wanted to see if they actually want to pivot and start cutting rates later this year. So again, it really comes down to the inflation report that's set to be released next week. So we'll need to monitor that closely. Let's take a look at Bitcoin here. Cryptocurrencies still hanging out. Bitcoin consolidating near its highs here. And as a real consolidation near the highs are bullish price action. And I think we really need to keep this Sun-Uranus transit, this conjunction that's set to unfold next week in the back of our minds here, because if there's ever going to be a time in this particular cycle in Bitcoin where we break resistance or support, I think we would likely see it by the end of next week. So eyes on the Bitcoin market for potential breakout either above resistance or below support by the end of next week. So those are all the charts that I wanted to review with you today. I want to thank you very much for watching our weekly update. A couple of announcements. We will have the monthly MMA cycles report published next Monday and Tuesday. That is the flagship MMA report where we provide updates on stocks, bonds, commodities, and currencies. And then, of course, a very exciting event set to take place at the beginning of June. We're going to have an investment retreat in course 2 of the Merriman Market Timing Academy, conducted live in person in Troy, Michigan. Details can be found at www.mmacycles.com. So that's all that I had for this week. Thank you so much for watching. And we're going to have Ray join us next week, so you won't want to miss that episode as the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ray Merriman, will be joining us. So thanks for watching. We'll see you same time, same place in 7 days.